have a big family, or if you have a small family with lots of friends and lots of things, or if you don't have a family, but you are a member of an orchestra and need somewhere to put your cello, you know what I mean. You need a big practical car. Well, then for the last few years at least, the Skoda Kodiaq has been one of the very shrewdest options, and now this big old bear has been given an update. So this is the refreshed, facelifted, snazzy new version of the Skoda Kodiaq. But before we get stuck in, 3 buttons please: like, subscribe and bell. I'll hang up.
This new Kodiaq constitutes what's known in the Carbuyer office as a textbook facelift. That's down to the classic set of mild changes at the front, namely a new headlight design, a redesigned grille and reshaped bonnet, while at the back, the tail lights have also got a subtle revamp, as has the bumper. Some extra safety tech has been added too. It certainly isn't a radical overhaul, but you do notice how much sharper and more modern the car looks compared to the outgoing version. It may not be dramatic, but it's very welcome indeed.
It's not very different on the inside either, which I suppose doesn't really matter because it was always quite nice and smart and high quality to begin with. Actually, the original Kodiaq was one of the first Skodas that had an interior that looked like it was specifically considered and specifically designed for the car, rather than just being like a basic hodgepodge afterthought. So that's why it's got a nice, smart, modern, lovely layout. Am I thrilled by it? No, but it's very neat and very functional, and it's what you want for a big family car. Rather than being thrilled, you want it to work. Now, Skoda are also offering this Sportline model, which is what we're sat in now. It's moderately exciting, but you do get some sport seats with like a Alcantara-esque material on them, which feels very nice. You've got some carbon fibre bits dotted around the cabin, sporty steering wheel, which is lovely, and I do like the stitching that's up here on the dash and on the seats as well. I think that looks very nice. All Kodiaqs come with this 8-inch touchscreen, which is, well, apart from the entry-level model, comes with sat-nav, is super, super snappy. I mean, it's got loads of features within it, but it's all nicely laid out that it makes everything so easy to use. Wireless Apple CarPlay and wired Android Auto as standard. And look what we have down here. Twisty dials and buttons. Love this. I mean, I know that we say that Volkswagen is a more sophisticated brand, but I much prefer this setup rather than VW's touchy slideys. Anything else worth mentioning? Ah, yes. 10.25-inch virtual cockpit display, which looks really lovely, and it's what you would expect in a car like this, especially in a high-spec car like this that costs around 40 grand. It's just a shame that you have to opt for it and pay 400 quid.
The Kodiaq is available in 4 main trim levels, starting with the entry-level SE, followed by SEL, Sportline, and finally L and K. There's also a powerful standalone model called the VRS, which, along with the facelift, has ditched diesel power for petrol. With 242 brake horsepower, it's punchy, but given the target market, it's likely to be a fairly niche choice. It's worth bearing in mind that the SE only comes with 5 seats as standard, so if you want a Kodiaq, primarily because it's a 7-seater, you'll need to choose them as an option, adding £1,400 to the car's starting price of 28 grand. Alternatively, you can move up to the SEL model, which starts at just over 32 grand. That's good value for such a big car, and we think the SEL makes the most sense as it looks smart and comes with all the key features that you need. Judge for yourself by heading to carbuyer.co.uk and checking out our full Kodiaq review complete with all the specs.
One thing that hasn't changed is the amount of space on offer back here. Look at this! There's tons of it. Even a tall person will be very comfortable back here. I can stretch my legs out underneath here. I mean, the roofline means my head is nowhere near the top. I mean, we don't even have the optional panoramic sunroof, but even if you do, that doesn't eat into the headroom either, which is all very nice, very limo-like in here. In the back, okay, it's not exactly dreamy back here. I mean, Skoda have been very honest about the fact that these seats are best saved for children. The Kia Sorento is a lot more accommodating, and if you can splash the cash, consider a Land Rover Discovery. I mean, if you think about that orchestra that I mentioned earlier, if 6 members of that orchestra wanted a lift home, they're going to wish they lived closer because it is so tight. Best safe for kids, or just really naughty and annoying adults maybe. Right, I'll tell you a bit about the boot and then we'll take this beast for a drive.
The Kodiaq is one of the most practical cars in its class, and there's plenty of space in the boot. Leave all 7 seats in place and you have 270 litres. With 5 seats you have 835 litres, and folding all the rear seats down frees up 2,065 litres of space. Rivals like the Kia, I just mentioned, as well as the Peugeot 5008, either offer similar amounts of luggage capacity or a little less. Our car also has the optional virtual pedal that enables you to open and close the boot by waggling your foot under the rear bumper, plus door edge protection, which comes as part of the optional family pack. Plastic strips emerge from the doors when they're opened to protect the edges from damage if they ever get whacked into other cars in tight parking spaces. Oh, and something else I noticed, which I think is utterly adorable, is the smallest little bin in the door bin there, complete with little miniature bin bag. Lovely. Oh, and a hole that comes with a brolly. Beautiful.
The Skoda Kodiaq has always been a smooth, relaxing car to drive, which is what you want in a big family wagon. So any changes to the latest update weren't really necessary. I mean, this car is nearly 5 metres long, weighs comfortably more than 2 tonnes, so it's not exactly going to be sprightly. I can hardly see anybody enjoying a track day in a Skoda Kodiaq, and if you are, don't be silly. This is definitely one of the more dynamic cars in its class. The ride is really impressive actually, even on these bigger 20-inch alloy wheels. I mean, it will be better if you go for a trim with smaller wheels. Steering, it's very secure, very predictable. It's direct enough that it feels nice and responsive, even if it doesn't feel sporty. I mean, the softer suspension means it does sort of pitch when you brake quickly, and it does roll a bit in corners when you take them too quickly. But it's not the sort of car that you want to drive too hard. I mean, Sportline, the name, is mostly about the styling, not the driving.
Many cars are going hybrid or electric these days, but not the Kodiaq. It still makes do with a core lineup of 2 diesel and 2 petrol engines, as well as that VRS we mentioned earlier. The entry-level 148 brake horsepower petrol engine is available with 2-wheel drive and a manual gearbox, making the car cheaper to buy and to run, returning up to 42.8 miles per gallon. Go for the more powerful engines, and both 4-wheel drive and a 7-speed automatic gearbox come as standard.
We have the bigger of the 2 petrol engines underneath this bonnet. It is a 2-litre engine with 187 brake horsepower. Does 0 to 62 in 7.7 seconds, which is actually 2 seconds faster than the smaller engine. I think this is a really nice fit in a car like this for the way that this generally drives. Like, it's got enough power for it to keep that calmness and refinement, although when you do put your foot down, it can get a bit unruly at times and it sounds a bit harsh, you know. The 7-speed DSG automatic gearbox, nice and swift, nice and smooth. Again, a very lovely fit for a big car like this. Now, here is where we come to the Skoda Kodiaq's major weaknesses. The official economy figures of 34.5 miles per gallon with CO2 emissions of 186 grams per kilometre don't sound that great. So we would normally say consider a diesel, especially if you're going to be doing some towing. And then you would say, well, maybe what about a hybrid option? Well, there isn't any. So our current favourite large family car, the Kia Sorento, has both a normal hybrid and a plug-in hybrid option. And actually, many other cars this size have one hybrid option, whereas this doesn't have either. So I think that's going to affect Skoda's sales. I mean, if you want a Skoda that is electrified, but you don't need 7 seats, we'd recommend the Skoda Enyaq, because that's a fantastic car. But anything else, tough luck, I'm afraid.
Well, that sounded like a deal breaker, really, didn't it? Let's have the Dealmakers too. Make it official. The Kodiaq offers tons of space for passengers in the middle row, usable 6th and 7th seats, and plenty of luggage capacity, plus many of Skoda's simply clever touches. The suspension does a good job of smoothing out poor road surfaces, and the powerful engines available also help make this a very comfortable and relaxing car to travel in. Better still, the entry-level 7-seat model comes in at under £30,000, which represents great value given the Kodiaq's practicality and standard equipment. On the downside, the lack of a plug-in hybrid or even a regular hybrid means the Kodiaq engine range, Kodiaq looks a little old-fashioned compared with many of the alternatives.
The Skoda Kodiaq very quickly became one of our favourite large family cars when it was first released. And this tweaked version is helping keep it near the top of its class. I mean, it ticks so many boxes. It is dead practical. It's very comfy, very relaxing to drive. The interior is very nice, very well built. The infotainment, again, is very lovely. I mean, there's not a lot to fault, really, is there? It's just a bit strange that there is no electrification in the engines whatsoever. I mean, it's worth bearing in mind that it doesn't make the Skoda Kodiaq good value if you go for the top trims or the range-topping models. However, it's only really the Kia Sorento that we would put above it in its class. So if you're not bothered about hybrid engines, this could well be the best family car for you.
In the market for a big family car? If so, why not watch our review of the Kia Sorento or our SUVs playlist? Thanks for watching.